Alrighty, guys. James Gunn, the co-CEO of DC and the upcoming director and writer of Superman, which I'm pretty excited about and I'm looking forward to seeing. James Gunn, though, who also, of course, by the way, directed the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and he was a big part of Marvel for a time. But James Gunn, he likes to get on social media and clarify things, which I think is a good thing in a sense, right? Because he can debunk rumors and whatnot. But sometimes, unless, these rumors are really heinous and you want to defend cast members and people and, things like that. Obviously, I'm all in favor of that. But sometimes I feel like James Gunn puts himself in a position where he feels like he has to clarify everything. And sometimes it's just maybe not worth talking about certain things that just don't really matter until we see a trailer or until we see the premise of a movie or something like that. Case in point, what we're about to talk about here has to do with Clayface. Now, last week, we talked about Clayface because the DCU film in 2026 is coming out soon, and it has just officially, or almost officially, cast its lead with Tom Rhys-Harris. And we discussed the idea that, maybe Tom Rhys-Harris is playing the base human for Clayface, but there are certainly possibilities for other actors to step in that role as well, just given the nature of the shape-shifting, just his shape-shifting powers, right? So it makes sense if other people are playing Clayface as well. So then, people pointed that out on threads, right? And they asked James Gunn questions about, okay, so what about the fact that you said, right? You said in an earlier comment about the DCU and casting that generally people who voice those characters, people who voice the characters in animation are going to then play the characters in live action, like how Frank Grillo is playing Rick Flag Sr. in Creature Commandos, Superman, and Peacemaker Season 2. And so James Gunn then went to clarify that he said the DC would, quote, plan on using primary actors wherever they can, right? Because Alan Tudyk was the voice of Clayface in Creature Commandos, though I don't even think he had many lines. He also was the voice of Dr. Phosphorus. And Alan Tudyk is, I would say at this point in his career, I mean, me personally, because I know he's done live action roles, but I know him more for his voices, right, than anything else. And I think that Alan Tudyk is one of those actors that James Gunn likes, and a lot of people in the industry like to use as fill-ins for voices wherever they can. And so I never took it as an indication that Alan Tudyk would be playing 3 different characters, because he was also someone else in Creature Commandos. We talked about this a while ago, where he was going to be playing 3 different voice roles, and I never took that as an indication of Alan Tudyk, playing many different DCU characters in live action. And so that's all fine. But then James Gunn continued on, and he had this to say, and this is just, to me, this is to be honest with you, this is where I say, James, you didn't need to say this, because now I don't know what's going on. I think this is, in my opinion, just in my personal opinion, James Gunn trying to be a little too cute and a little bit too coy, when in reality he just didn't need to say this, because he then followed up and said, quote, I've also never said if the 2 characters are the same. Parentheses, I've also never said they're not. Okay, so, first of all, is there a distinct possibility that the Clayface in Creature Commandos and the Clayface in the upcoming Clayface movie are not the same person? There are just 2 Clayfaces running around in the DCU? I suppose so. I don't know if it's a situation in the comics where, I don't think so, right? Nobody's been talking about this, where you have 2 Spider-Men running around with Miles Morales and Peter Parker, or 2 Ant-Men with Hank Pym and Scott Lang, or, multiple, I don't know about the DC equivalent, multiple Green Lanterns. I don't know if it's the same. I don't think so. It seems like the Tom Rhys-Harris version of the character is Basil Karlo. That it's that version of the character. So, I mean, sure, there could be 2 different Clayfaces, but my question is why? Because, look, I get it that DC is operating different than Marvel, and I know a lot of people want to say, and people have been telling me in the comments, no, DC is going to be completely isolated, the different projects can be isolated from one another. Again, it's not a positive or a negative thing, it's just looking at things how they are. And a newsflash is that the first few projects of the DCU are very interconnected, insofar as Superman, right? Supergirl is in Superman, and Frank Grillo, we just talked about Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. is going to be in all the projects, right? Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner is going to be in 3 of the 4 upcoming projects. So, no, I mean, it is what it is. The DCU is still going to be interconnected. And I don't understand what James Gunn's comment is meant to allude to here, because honestly, what I think he's doing here is he's trying to say, oh, Alan Tudyk's voicing him in Creature Commandos, but why we cast a different actor? Why do we do that? Because the most simple explanation for it is just that they wanted a different actor than Alan Tudyk, who is a great voice actor, probably not the person they wanted in live action, so they cast Tom Rhys-Harris. Lo and behold, people are like, why'd you do that? And James Gunn is like, I don't know. I mean, I never said they weren't the same person. I also never said they were. And now it's like, what? Why? Why did we do that? Honestly, I think this is much ado about nothing. I'm only making this segment because I suppose there is a possibility that James Gunn just hinted at the fact that there are two different Clayfaces in the DCU. Also, the possibility that this DCU film is Elseworlds, which I guess has never been explicitly stated or not stated. Again, it's all confusing, and I feel like James Gunn, this is one of those moments where I enjoy most of the times when he debunks things and he confirms things, and it's fun, right? But honestly, sometimes I'm like, what? Did we need to go here? So, I don't know. This is just something where we'll file this under, I guess James Gunn said it, and then move on and see what happens. When we get an official trailer, we get an official confirmation and all that good stuff. Guys, what do you make of James Gunn's comments that maybe there are two different Clayfaces? Maybe the Clayface in Creature Commandos is not the same as the one that's going to be in the film in 2026. Let me know in the comments down below.